Local recording. Hey, what's up, everybody? Pat here, and thank you so much for joining me today. And we are joined by a special guest who I'm going to introduce in just a second. But today we're talking about something that a lot of entrepreneurs want to avoid, don't like talking about. But you know what? We found the right person to chat about these things because A, they're so important to understand, but B, they can be made fun and interesting. And when you lay it out in the way that we're about to show you, you're going to be well equipped to handle things in the future and be more likely to succeed because of the things that we can do with this knowledge. And so before we get into the information, why don't we bring on our special guest here? And we have Yaz. What's up, Yaz? Thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Pat. Hey, everyone. Thanks so much.
I'm so excited because not only are we going to do this today, but you and I are going to join forces again tomorrow with just us, but we're going to record a podcast episode together. So we're getting kind of back to back with your knowledge here. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell people what your superpowers are and what you do for the entrepreneurs in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Yaz. I'm Yasmin Salem Hamden. I am a business and intellectual property attorney based in Dallas, Texas. And I have been working with business owners and entrepreneurs since 2016. It has been I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have entered into the world of business and entrepreneurship, and especially in this very exciting time that we are living in the digital age where we have access to technology and tools and being able to connect with people all around the world. I got to say, it's a lot more fun than some other areas of law. So that's why I'm so very grateful. And also because I've had the opportunity to connect with such incredible people, to hear so many incredible stories, to witness the creativity and innovation of so many. And I got to say, it really is just the coolest. I have a feeling, Pat, you probably would agree that we have some of the coolest jobs there are out there.
Oh, I feel so blessed. And like the people that we can serve who are literally on the other side of the world, the fact that we can create content that continues to get views and continues to get absorbed is just it's such an amazing time. I know a lot of people are talking like, this is the worst time in the world. I'm like, this is the best time if you grasp the opportunities that are in front of you. And that's why we're here to help you with those opportunities too. And today we're going to talk about legal things, intellectual property, trademarks, things like that. Why, before we dive into it and I hand you the mic and we're going to go into your slide presentation, what has been your experience working with entrepreneurs who typically get into it not to learn about these things? They get into it because they're creators, because we're excited about building something. Why is it important that we do pay attention to this stuff? And how do we not get overwhelmed by it?
Yeah, great question. And I think probably 99% of entrepreneurs would say, I did not get into business so that I could manage the legal side of my business.
Guaranteed.
Yes. Nobody wants to go to law school, really. I mean, if you're going into business, it's not because you want to, pour over the legislation and the laws and the regulations that are related to the business you're about to run. You're trying to run the business. You're trying to grow the business. You want to build the business. You want to serve the people that you are creating a solution for or adding value to, their lives or their businesses. And so, yeah, it's certainly I've come across that opinion a lot. Not everybody gets as excited and, fired up over the legal stuff as I do, but it's a very important part of doing business. It's a very important part of engaging in commercial transactions when money is changing hands, when you're entering into contracts. There are also laws that protect consumers because we are all also consumers, right? So it can be kind of easy to step into the consumer's position, and you can see how businesses can take advantage of consumers. So there are laws to protect consumers, and that's a responsibility of ours as business owners, as well as to be conscious of that. And so I know it's not the most exciting side of doing business. It's certainly not as exciting as marketing or sales or, actually being able to work directly with a client. But it's one of those things that when you take that proactive action and invest time and a little bit of money early on in that legal foundation, it can set you up to, be protected and not have to be reactive. I'm all about be proactive. Don't wait to be reactive when it comes to your legal stuff, because it's not a matter of if you're going to face legal issues in your business. It's a matter of when. It just comes with the territory.
Right.
And that means it's something to prepare for, and to take a little bit of time to do that early on so you can give yourself that peace of mind. You can know, okay, well, I've got great contracts in place. I know I have a business entity in my state. I'm engaging in good business practices when it comes to maintaining my own personal liability, protecting my clients, etc. And yeah, being waiting to be reactive is always more expensive. It's always more time consuming. I can guarantee it's always more stressful. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And so it's just something that is avoidable. And I would love for every entrepreneur to know what they need to know in order to protect themselves. Because I know sometimes you don't know what you don't know, you know?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I got into some trouble when I first started in 2008 with trademarks because I just didn't know. If only there was somebody like you who was excited about it and was willing to share this information like you're doing today, then I'd be better equipped. And that's why we're here. And I'm just so grateful that there are people like you who can get excited about the stuff that we don't often get excited about. And I think this is why relationships and finding people out there and things like SPI Pro are so key, because we can bring all these people together in one spot. We've talked about SPI Pro quite a bit this week, and we've had a couple amazing people, other experts who've come on in just to formalize it. You are now an expert in residence in SPI Pro, Yaz, and we're just so grateful to
Yeah.
have you. But I'm going to
I'm
give
so happy to
you,
be here.
thank you so much. And I'm going to give you the mic, and I'm going to, well, you have the mic, but I'm going to share your screen, and then we're going to go into your presentation, and then we'll take some questions at the end. Does that sound good?
Yes, absolutely. And can I say, I loved the first two sessions this week with Amy and Nasheen. They
They're
were
great.
really good.
And
Oh
now
my
I'm
God.
self-conscious of like what my hands are doing
Oh
now.
my God. It was okay. Let me just say it was the perfect warm up for me coming into today. I was like, this is actually great. Perfect.
Yeah, it was perfect. It was a
Told
perfect
Nasheen
setup.
that.
Here we go. I'm going to share the screen, and then Chad, if you have any questions, by the way, thank you for being here. Popular Report, we got Becoming Resources, Tina, Colleen, Consult the Blind Guy. Saw Dr. Joella, who's been with us for a very long time. She's a person who helps with posture and ergonomics and things like that. Every time I see her, I have to do a shoulder
Like, I
stretch
gotta
because
sit up now. Hang
yeah,
on.
it's amazing. Anyway, if you have questions, type question in all caps followed by your question as we go along. I'll save them and we can address them at the end. So here we
Okay,
go.
cool. Sweet. All right. Are we good here?
We're good to go.
Perfect. Okay, let me take note of the time because we're going to get into some good stuff today. It's important for you to understand that we're not going to, go as deep. Of course, I could probably talk about this for hours. However, I do believe we have an in-depth session that we're going to do in SPI Pro. So we're going to
Yes.
get into, yes. So we're going to get into a section of legal protection and something that is, Pat, you hit the nail on the head in terms of it's something that many entrepreneurs learn about and sometimes run into a legal landmine early on in their business journey. And it is intellectual property and understanding trademarks and copyrights and what that means for you as a business owner and somebody who's creating content and marketing online. So today we're covering intellectual property, how to protect your brand and content online. And what you can expect for us to go over today is the distinction between trademarks and copyrights. And if you hear those right now and you're thinking, I don't know what that is, I don't know what either of those words mean, you're certainly not alone. I think, I would be interested to hear, statistically speaking, but I see it used interchangeably all the time. I see the different forms of IP used interchangeably and incorrectly oftentimes. And my goal is for you to walk away today having a clear understanding of that. And yeah, it's a bit of a challenge, I guess I take on. However, I know that it's possible because you can totally do this. This is something that is doable, and we're going to do this together. So we're going to talk about the importance of trademarks when it comes to naming your business or when you're launching anything. If you're launching a course, if you're launching a podcast, if you're launching a community membership, what you need to be keeping in mind when it comes to trademarks when you are actively naming those and establishing the brand. And then I'm going to share with you a bit of a routine for you to go through anytime you are actively naming a brand or an offer of any kind, which is a trademark clearance search to make sure that you're not going to be selecting and investing in a brand name that somebody else already has the rights to. And this can save you a lot of time and money. So stay tuned for that. I would love to introduce you to my friend Sheila here. Sheila is an entrepreneur like you and I, Pat, and like probably everybody on this session right now. And Sheila has started a new business. She has a product or a service that she wants to offer for sale. She is planning to build a brand and a digital presence online using various platforms, and is going to be publishing content on YouTube, or maybe she decides to go with a podcast. She'll be publishing on her website. Maybe she has a membership and she's more than likely publishing on social media and promoting her business and offering and brand on social media. She also knows that she wants to legally protect herself, but she isn't exactly sure of how to proceed. So let me know in the chat if you can relate to Sheila at all, because I know that even, the even myself in the early stages of my business, when I started my business, it was a matter of, okay, I don't know exactly what I need, but I know that I need legal protection. So then at that point, it was a matter of gaining the knowledge and finding resources that could teach me about what I needed to know. And then the second part to that was taking action on that knowledge, because, knowledge is great, but without action, it's wasted. And so this is Sheila, and you might be able to relate to Sheila a bit. I know I can. What Sheila and myself and Pat and every other entrepreneur on the planet should understand is that and I touched on this a bit earlier in our conversation, is that when it comes to legally protecting yourself and building a solid legal foundation in your business, it is all about being proactive. Waiting to be reactive is always more expensive, always more time consuming. I mentioned it's always more stressful. And your business is worthy of that investment of time and energy and resources, but you don't want to be investing it to clean up a mess or do damage control, right? You want to do that in a way that grows your business and pushes your business forward and helps it progress and achieve the type of success you're seeking when it comes to your business. And so I share that to say, to emphasize the importance of being proactive when it comes to your legal foundation, especially since your legal foundation is something that affects every department of your business, from sales to marketing to customer service, to your team, etc. So I really want to encourage you to be proactive when it comes to your business's legal foundation. Don't wait to be reactive. You will be so grateful when those times arise that you took action early on. Pat, I imagine you can relate to that and have had those moments in your time where you're like, whoa, I'm glad I had that contract in place in that situation. Or, man, I'm really glad I, took the steps to protect this thing that I worked so hard to build.
Definitely. Especially we all want to grow. And so with growing comes some growing pains. And sometimes that means other people maybe trying to steal your stuff or take your intellectual property in some way, shape, or form. So you now have protections in place for that. Or, knowing ahead of time not to go down a certain route, right? Like not choosing a particular name because, somebody else was using it.
Yes.
I'm sure you're going to go over the process of how
to
to discover these things. Yeah.
For sure.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. And I don't love it that you have to learn those lessons the hard way, but sometimes that is the case. And so part of my mission is to help people not have to learn those lessons the hard way. There are some lessons that, inevitably we all got to learn at some point or another. But there are some things when it comes to legally protecting yourself that you shouldn't have to learn it the hard way. And you can learn from the mistakes of others and, from learning best business practices and putting those into action. So hopefully you're still with me if you're watching this and not, either bored out of your mind or terrified. I guess it could go either way, but I want you to know that you can do this. You're not the first entrepreneur to pursue legal protection or do what you need to do to legally protect your business. It's totally doable. And the fact that you're here and watching this and a part of a community like SPI Pro, or maybe you're thinking of joining a community like that because you find yourself aligned with it, that's a great sign in and of itself. And so you can totally do this, and we're doing it together. So of course I am an attorney, my friends. However, I got to come with the disclaimer, and it is that this training is for educational and informational purposes only. So I want to make sure that it's clear. Yes, I am an attorney. I'm licensed in the state of Texas. However, watching this doesn't create an attorney-client relationship, and I won't be providing any legal advice during this session, just information and education. And I'm happy to, and I'm looking forward to our Q&A at the end. So we'll be saving some time for that. But just to be clear, and if you are needing customized legal support or personalized legal support for a situation you're facing right now, I encourage you to consult with an attorney that's licensed in your jurisdiction. So
how many times have you said that?
I need to come up with a like a memorized, in 15 words or less, how I can
Yeah, yeah.
deliver now that you mention it. But yes, I have said that a number of times, but I've got to templatize it, I suppose. Yes. So a bit about me. I've shared a bit about me. I'm based in Dallas. I've been working with entrepreneurs for nearly 10 years now, and I am so excited to be here and to be sharing all of this goodness with you. So let's get into it for sake of time, and hopefully we'll have a chance to connect later and share more. And Pat, you mentioned that we're going to be jamming out on the podcast together,
Yep.
so you can catch that episode too if you're wanting to hear more. So let's get into my legally launch framework. So anytime you're launching something new, whether it's your brand and the company, or maybe it's something within your brand or company, like a podcast or a YouTube channel or a course or a group coaching program, maybe it's a signature offer or framework. Perhaps it's the name of your membership community, literally anything. Anytime you are launching anything, you want to take into consideration these three components of the legal foundation, and that's the business entity, your intellectual property, and your contracts. Each of these pillars, if you will, protect different areas of your business, and they all work together. They're all connected. So we won't be getting into all of this today. We're going to be focusing today on intellectual property in particular, partly because it's kind of my favorite. I know this might be the first time you've ever heard anybody utter the words that trademarks are my jam, but they are in fact my jam. And so that's one reason why. But the other is because it is a very important part of your business, and it provides a lot of context. So I'm excited to share this with you. If this is the first time you're hearing or learning about intellectual property, I'm honored to be sharing this with you. And if you're already kind of familiar with intellectual property, I'm still confident that you'll take something away from this session. That will set you up to, be more proactive in your business and be conscious of the IP assets that you're creating and how you can go about protecting them. So what is intellectual property? And this might be the last time I say intellectual property, because it is also known as IP. Intellectual property is kind of a mouthful. There I go again. Okay, what is IP? IP is a type of property asset. So we have real property and personal property. These are physical assets that we can hold, that we can touch: a house, a car, a microphone, anything that is, I guess, I don't know if it's arguable of value, but anything that is physical that you can hold and touch, that is a form of property. And then we have IP, intellectual property. And these are intangible forms of assets and intangible creations of human intellect. So within the context of our conversation and building a business and using, the internet and technology in order to do so, this is really the brand that you're building and the content that you're creating. These are the two forms of intellectual property that you've probably already created some like this. And it's important that you know that the law provides business owners and individuals exclusive rights to the use of these assets that they're building and that they're developing. And when you think about it, you really are actively developing an asset. Each time you promote your brand, each time you create content, each time you, maintain exclusivity of the use of your brand name or your logo, etc. And we'll talk about what kinds of assets these are. But each time you do that, you're investing in the value of the business. And so it's important that, like any asset, we take steps to protect those assets and make sure that we're maintaining the value of them and the exclusivity of them. And so let's see. This is a reframe or perspective shift. I don't know exactly what I would call it, but this is something I wish everybody would view, that everyone would view their business as and their content creation process as. And that is that each time you are building a brand and creating content, you are creating assets. Each time you create content within your business or under your brand, you are developing and creating more assets. And that's a pretty incredible thing, right? It's one of those things that when you think about it, you're like, it's just wow, out of nothing. It requires, of course, your creativity, your energy, your time. But it's kind of like almost out of thin air. I don't know, a little bit magical, maybe. But this is a reframe that if you experience this and begin to view each time you're building your brand, each time you're creating content as a creation of an asset in your business, you begin to engage in business practices differently when it comes to entering into contracts, hiring people to create content on your behalf, partnering with others or letting others use your brand name, when you are promoting and creating promotional content. All of these activities, there are legal aspects to it. And so begin to view it through this lens of, as I'm building my business, I am building an asset. And as I'm developing my brand, and every time I create content, I'm also creating additional assets. And I really believe things will change for you and things will change in your business. So that being said, research shows that up to 90% of company value is based on intellectual property assets. So the business world and the world of business and the world as a whole is very different today than it was, 50 years ago, for example. And even I feel like 10 years ago was a different world, if I'm being
Mm-hmm.
honest. It really, when I think back to 2015, that feels like we were living in a completely different world, right?
Yeah, I mean,
It's kind of
everything was
wild.
so different. However,
Yeah.
a lot of the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
rules kind of apply. It's
Yes.
just the
Yeah.
technology's
Yeah. For sure.
changed, the way we've created content has changed. So,
For sure.
these
Yeah.
principles that you're sharing with us, even that mindset shift, the number of comments coming in of people just saying like, "Hey, I never thought about it that way," but it's so true. And assets have value, and assets can continue to pay us
Yeah.
over time, much like a house is an asset or
Mhm.
stocks are an asset. And the ability, like you said, that we can just kind of create it, kind of quote unquote out of
Yes.
thin air is such a wonderful blessing. Um,
Yes,
and
it
it's
really is.
exactly why we want to protect it.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And so, I say this because, when it comes to the majority of your business's value being rooted in intellectual property assets, we don't necessarily have, it's not a requirement for you to have physical assets, a brick and mortar, some land that you build a storefront on, or an office, or, inventory and equipment. Many of our businesses have close to zero physical assets, maybe a laptop, some, production equipment, maybe. That's not even a prerequisite, right? So it's pretty incredible. And it's important for us to keep in mind that when the majority of our business's value is rooted in intellectual property assets, the intellectual property assets that we are creating, we want to make sure that we are taking steps to, as Pat mentioned, protect those assets, just like we would protect any other. So all right. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so there are a number of different kinds of intellectual property assets, but for purposes of our discussion here, and as an entrepreneur and business owner that is creating a business similar to the one that we discussed earlier, like Sheila's business, you're creating content, you're publishing it online, you're offering a product or a service, you likely deliver this virtually. These are the two core types of intellectual property you want to get familiar with, and those are trademarks and copyrights. You can see the symbols here. You might be familiar with how to use these symbols. You might not. I'm going to share with you how and when to use these symbols as well. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And so right now, to get the party started, let's talk about trademarks and copyrights. And so trademarks are, as you can see here, distinct source identifiers that identify the source of products or services that are sold. And in contrast, we have copyrights which are original works of art or authorship. And so I want you to visualize a box, okay, a package, if you will. And the package has some wrapping paper or packaging on the outside of the box. And it has where this box came from. So the name of the company, the slogan or tagline, maybe it has a logo, maybe it has very distinct symbols. It's on the outside of the box, and it's the first thing consumers interact with. And you don't even need to know what's inside the box to know where this box came from. These labels on the outside of the box are your trademark assets. These are those distinct source identifiers. They identify where whatever it is that's being sold is coming from. When you open the box up, inside you find the contents of the box, and that is quite literally the content in your business. These are those original works of art or authorship. And so this includes all of the content that you're creating, whether it's visual works, audio works, written works, anything that you're creating that is a creative work, an original work, somebody has rights to it. And if you created it, you have rights to it by default. And the rights that you have extend to the use of it, the publishing of it, the repurposing of it, creating a derivative work derived from it, licensing it to others, etc. So Let me know if that visual helped illustrate. What do you think, Pat? What did you think of
Yeah, I
that
mean, even
visual?
Kelsey, who's on Team SPI here as well, are agreeing that the metaphor is great. That's I haven't ever heard it put so simply. So the
Love
box
it.
and everything that identifies, oh, this is like, like when you go to the Apple store, all the boxes, you could tell the Apple logo on it. It's white, it's clean, it has like an experience along with it. All those things that are
Wait, the
around it. That is the equivalent of like online. If we don't have a physical box that is our logo, our
Mhm.
tagline, all the other
Yes.
things that would make our brand kind of stand out and obviously different from the other brands that are out there,
Yeah.
perhaps in a similar space, right?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so we've got our box and we've got our two types of intellectual property. We've got trademarks and copyrights. Trademarks identify the source, that's your company name. And let me actually move to the next slide. Um, this is a chart that I every time I've shared this chart in any session or explanation to anybody, I would love for you to screenshot this and put this in your notes. If you're taking notes on this, please take a screenshot of this and put it in your notes because I would love for you to be able to reference this. Because after today's session, you are probably going to go out into the world and start seeing trademarks and copyrights everywhere. That
Hmm.
is what I hear from everybody after we go over this. They're like, I didn't realize how it's a part of every thing in my business and in the businesses of others and in the physical world when I interact with other products and services that are being sold as a consumer. And so, if you're taking notes on this, if you're not taking notes on this, you might want to, but and just add this in. But yeah, I invite you to do that so that you are able to reference it at a later time. We mentioned examples of trademarks. So I have them listed here. You can see those are those source identifiers that we want to be distinct and different from what else is already existing in the market. I think I might have just sort of skipped over this briefly earlier in terms of what your rights are when it comes to your trademark. We mentioned with a copyright, with your content you're creating, you have the exclusive rights to publish it, display it, sell it, license it, profit off of it generally. With your trademarks, with the name of your company or the name of your podcast or the name of your course, you have the exclusive rights to the use of it in connection with those products and services specifically. So if somebody is using the same trademark, but it's being used in something totally unrelated, those actually can coexist in the market and there's no infringement issue most likely. However, if the products and services are highly related or even kind of related, it could be found to be infringing. And you might want to go in a different direction if you find somebody's already using a trademark in connection with similar products or services. So there are registrars for each of these. You can register your trademark with the US Patent and Trademark Office, and that grants you rights to the use of it exclusively across the country in the US. There are also international registrars, and every country has their own trademark registrar where you can register your trademark and be granted those exclusive rights within that jurisdiction. So trademarks and copyrights are both jurisdiction based. But if you're in the US or if you're doing business in the US, if you're actively marketing to the US market, then it might make sense for you to register your trademark. So here are some trademarks that you've likely encountered in the wild. One of the most popular trademark portfolios and most valuable trademark portfolios is owned by Nike. And we're pretty much all, and when I say all, I kind of mean every human on planet Earth has heard of Nike and has seen the shoes, has seen the athletic wear, has seen the sports related campaigns, and we're all familiar with their three core trademarks, which is their company name, Nike, their slogan, just do it, and their logo, the swoosh symbol. Google, of course, is another popular one, and you can actually claim rights in colors as well. So this color scheme and this combination of colors being used to identify the source of the services Google provides, they're able to claim exclusive rights in that so that another search engine or another online platform could not use this same, because if I saw this color scheme in a different word written in this same color scheme, I have a feeling I would think it was associated with Google, right? Especially if it's a similar font. And so distinction can also be found in color combinations. And then Apple, they have an absurd number of trademark registrations. I think they might have over 1,000 trademark registrations for all of their various products and features and different source identifiers that they have created. So a lot of their, value lies in that intellectual property as well. It's not just the technology. And that's something that a lot of people think is that, mistakenly believe is that, the only intellectual property that's of value is something that's tied to technology, or there's some sort of scientific or technical, involvement, or, it's a patent, an invention of some kind. Yes, there is, huge potential in that type of IP asset, and there's value to be found there. But there's tons of value to be found in intellectual property assets like trademarks and copyrights. And so, yeah, I'm a little biased, but you know what? It's also true. So, hopefully that helped in terms of illustrating what trademarks look like in practice commercially. And then I mentioned this briefly. It's that trademarks protect consumers too. And so trademark law is not just in place to make sure businesses can protect their business name and own the rights to their business name. It's also in place to protect consumers from being deceived and being misled to believe that there's an affiliation between these two companies, when in fact one company had the name first, and then the second company started using it, and it resulted in a confusion in the marketplace, and the customer being confused and maybe making a purchase from a brand that they thought they were purchasing from the other brand. And you can see how that can be problematic for consumers and also problematic for business owners. Okay, let's talk about symbols very quickly. If you are somebody who has a trademark registration, you can now use the circled R. That is if you have federally registered your trademark. If you are somebody who is not yet registered, and maybe you don't even have an application pending, you can still use the TM. And it's a good practice to use the TM in certain settings, because you want to make sure that it's clear that you're not using this word or phrase in a generic way that other people in your industry can adopt as well. You're actually using it in a distinct manner, and you're claiming exclusive rights to the use of it as your company name or your framework or your methodology or the name of your podcast or program, etc. Okay, quick poll. I would love to hear from you if you, after hearing this, or maybe prior to this, you were aware, do you have trademark assets in your business? You could type 1 for yes, 2 for
I
no,
do.
not yet, 3 for not quite sure. Yes, would love to hear. Okay, I'm
I
going
have
to
a
check
quick
out the chat.
question. Good questions
Yes,
coming, which I'm saving, by the way,
cool.
for the end here. But I do have a question about. So I have, for example, a business name, Smart Passive Income, and that's been trademarked. And I have course
Nice.
names, which have been trademarked as well. But
Nice.
if I say wanted to start a new podcast that was something different, um, how important is it for me to trademark that for a podcast name, for example? Is it like, because some people are probably wondering, like, is this a requirement before I start, or can I just throw the TM on there and kind of hope for the best? And is there any research
Yeah.
that needs to be done? Just kind
Yes.
of asking on behalf of people who might be curious.
Yes, absolutely. So that's a great question. And there is some research to be done prior to deciding on a name. You don't have to file an application before you start using a name. There are a couple of different ways that you can go about it. So if I decide I want to launch a new podcast, and I've decided on the name of the podcast, I first want to do a trademark clearance search. And I'm just going to skip ahead in
Sorry, I'm
the
asking
presentation. Oh, you're
things out
so
of order.
good. I think this is actually perfect order, and we'll return shortly if I can actually find what it is that I'm looking for. And here it is. Okay, so before you fully commit to a brand name, or the name of a podcast, or whatever it is that you're wanting to start, you should conduct a trademark clearance search. And the reason why is because when you conduct a trademark clearance search, you're clearing it for use. You're making sure that somebody else is not already using it or registered in connection with something related to your products or services. And so what happens if you don't do a trademark clearance search is that you can find yourself, just to paint the picture.
Mhm.
Found this perfect name. I love the name. It's absolutely perfect. The social media handle is available, so I'm just going to go with it. Maybe the domain name might be available too. I'm just going to go with it. And then I, start building my website. I start developing the brand, all the promotional assets. Maybe I make the announcement to the world. I launch the podcast. Everything's great. woohoo, which, that is fun times. That's actually a very exciting period of time.
Right.
So that's why I hate that sometimes it can end on a somewhat sour note, or you can, I guess it's not an ending. It's more of a pretty significant speed bump, maybe is the
Hmm.
way to put it. But at that point, some people find themselves receiving a cease and desist from a person who has been using that name in connection with something related, and maybe they have the trademark registration already, and you are committing trademark infringement by using a trademark that somebody already has the rights to the use of. And so at that point, you face, okay, well, now I need to, I guess at that point you have to decide, are you going to fight with this other party, or is it clear to you that, okay, they already have the rights. I'll never be able to own the rights to this brand. Let me go in a different direction. At that point, you have to go through that something of a forced rebranding and have to invest in, the new marketing materials and the website and, announcing to everyone. The announcement that you made prior is kind of, meaningless at this point in terms of brand awareness, because now you're going to be known as a different brand or as a different podcast. And so highly encourage you, anytime you're going to launch something new, to do a trademark clearance search on your own. I included a search checklist here for you to consider. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list of, doing this search will not guarantee, of course, that
Right.
you won't be infringing. There's always some possibility. However, this is what I would do before I worked with a lawyer to register my trademark. In my opinion, it is best practice to work with an attorney to seek registration of your trademark, because they are the most familiar with the process and with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and it is somewhat of a technical application process. However, before you work with an attorney to do that, if there's something on Google or the USPTO database or on social media that they would find in 5 minutes, I would prefer for you to find that first before paying the lawyer, and they find it in, a short Google search or something. And
And to
so that way,
quickly clarify, related industry is the important part of this, right? So it's like if
yeah,
somebody has a brand name, whatever
mhm,
X, not X, because that's
yeah,
actually a brand name now, but like in an
that's
industry,
actually a brand.
yeah, it is. But I want to create something different in a totally different space. I can use the same name so long as
Yeah,
it's very clear that there's a distinction between, okay, this is for flowers and this one is for, an AI tool or something like that, right?
yeah,
If
yes,
it's kind of like,
absolutely.
if you're not sure, if it's like, okay, well, that's tech, but not the exact same tech. And if it's like, that's when you would probably want to get some professional sort of advice, right? At that
Yeah.
point.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So if you find that there is an existing trademark being used in connection with something totally unrelated, and it's not a super famous brand either. So something like Apple, if
Ah,
I was trying to, let's say, I don't think that Apple makes ring lights, right? Like, or lighting. I don't know. Maybe they do, but I don't think they do. And so if I wanted to create a brand where I was selling, lighting equipment, and I wanted to call it Apple, maybe Apple doesn't sell that exact same type of, electronics. However, they could reasonably expand to that in the future. So if they're kind of close, I would even take that as a red flag and go in a different direction.
okay.
Um, so yeah, but there are plenty of trademarks that coexist. Dove soap and Dove chocolate, they're the exact same trademark, but they're two totally different products. Delta Airlines and Delta faucets, they're the exact same trademark, but
Hmm.
they're totally different products. And as consumers, we might not have even noticed that, which just goes to show how little likelihood of confusion there is, between the marks, because they're so far removed from one another that there's
Yeah.
no way consumers, or it's highly unlikely that consumers would be led to believe that, these faucets must be really great because I had a great experience on that Delta flight last month, or, like, highly unlikely,
Yeah.
right?
Unless, does Delta use Delta faucets in their bathrooms? I have no
That's a good
idea.
question. I would
They
want to
should.
know.
They should.
That might create confusion. I don't know. Just like on brand toilets. Interesting approach.
Yeah.
But yes, so there's that. So yes, I would go through this trademark clearance search anytime you're wanting to do launch a new brand or establish a new name for your podcast or your program or your company as a whole. And then it's also a good idea to have a reminder on your calendar quarterly to go through this search just to see, is anybody using it now in the time since I started using my brand?
Mm.
What does the market look like in terms of the use of these trademarks that I want to have the exclusive rights to, so that if somebody is using it, let's say you started using it in January, you launched your business or you launched your podcast, and then in June, somebody, came onto the scene, started using the trademark, you want to have that on your radar sooner rather than later so you can nip it in the bud if need be.
Yeah. Got it.
So
Cool.
yeah,
We got
hope that's
20 minutes.
helpful.
Yeah. So I'll let you keep going, and then we'll have some
Yeah,
time for questions at the end.
appreciate it. Okay, I'm going to try to wrap this up. And in our more extended webinar that we'll do in SPI Pro, we'll go more in depth on some of these topics. So
For
if you
sure.
have questions, I would love to see you in there. Let me share with you very quickly that on copyrights, just to tie up our IP discussion. Copyrights protect the rights of the creator. And so you can probably relate to, and you likely have copyright assets. Would love to hear from you in the chat if you believe that you do have copyright assets, and maybe you've had copyright assets for quite some time. If you are a writer or if you create any type of visual content or audio content, the answer is going to be definitely yes. And so it's important that we take steps to protect those assets, and that can be done through our practices in terms of how we're publishing our content, the terms and conditions attached to the access to the content, whether it's on our public website or within a paid program or through an email newsletter, whatever that might be. Okay, I'm going to have to skip a couple of these. When it comes to your trademark, the more distinct your trademark it is, the better. So you want to try and stay away from more generic or descriptive at times. Sometimes it makes sense to have a more generic and descriptive name depending on the context. Maybe the name of a course, might do it well to have it be more descriptive so that people can understand what exactly it is. But when it comes to the name of your company, ideally you have a more distinct trademark. So I'll share this example with you guys very quickly. Let's say I want to launch a YouTube channel and it's focused on teaching viewers the fundamentals of of video production, content creation, and camera presence. Calling it the video production experts is pretty descriptive and generic. And the way you can identify whether or not your trademark is descriptive of generic is by asking yourself the question, is somebody who is, maybe you can call them your competitor or somebody who is selling something similar to me or providing something similar to me, do they need to use these words to just describe their products or services? And if they do, then it's probably generic or descriptive. So other people who so here's a more distinct name. Maybe the name of their channel is Ready, Set, Record. And that is a YouTube channel providing that same content. Other people who are teaching on this same content do not have to use Ready, Set, Record to just describe their services or their products or their offerings. They might need to use the words video production and experts. So that is why this is generic and descriptive, and something like Ready, Set, Record is more distinct and not directly related to it. It gives you, it's a bit suggestive, which is still considered distinct. It kind of suggests the nature of it. You might be able to guess, but you probably wouldn't know exactly what the nature of the services are if you heard the name Ready, Set, Record.
So would that first one, the experts one, almost like not
Mhm.
even be approved as a trademark because it is kind of descriptive?
Yes,
Got it.
exactly. That is the consequence of it. And thank you for closing that loop. So
Yeah, yeah.
yes, the bad side of it is that if you use something generic or descriptive, you wouldn't be able to secure exclusive rights in it. You couldn't register it. It would be rejected by the USPTO, and you can't stop others from using that same trademark or something similar to it because it's generic and descriptive. And so, yes, it's a great idea when it comes to naming the company, your primary trademark, and maybe your most valuable trademark asset, the business name itself. Go in the direction of more distinct as opposed to more generic or descriptive. And there are so many nuances to this, and I would love to get into each and every one of them. And maybe we can when we do our longer webinar. But yes, I hope that's helpful, and I hope that's clear. Was there anything else on that topic,
Yeah, that was
Pat?
helpful.
You think we should?
Again, like you
Cool.
said, we can go a little deeper, but
Yeah,
I think we'll go deeper in the workshop. You and I will go deeper
for
tomorrow
sure.
in our podcast. So let's keep
For
going.
sure.
This is great.
Cool. Love it. Here's a quick guide to avoiding infringement situations. So very quickly, and I won't read this word for word because I know you guys can do that. And I think you'll be able to watch the replay of this on YouTube if
Yes.
you'd like. So don't copy or plagiarize. Always ask for somebody else's consent anytime you're wanting to use their content. So if you're wanting to use, whether it's an audio or a photo or, video or whatever it might look like, ask for the consent of whoever owns it. Somebody owns the rights to every piece of content. So you'll probably learn this if you haven't already. Just because you found it on Google or because you found it on Pinterest does not mean you can use the image on your website or on social media. If you found an audio and you really like the audio, you can't clip that audio and use it for the jingle of your podcast or your YouTube intro. You have to get consent. Yes.
That being
Have
said,
you been there?
yes, on both sides actually, but
Yeah.
there are platforms like TikTok or Reels or Shorts that actually have the mechanism because those creators have given permission for other people to like stitch
Yes.
those things
Yes.
and like react to them, right? That's okay because that's built into the platform, right?
Yes, that
Okay,
I love
cool.
that because I saw a thread this morning, a conversation where a couple of people were talking about, they were annoyed by, I think this person was in the yoga and fitness space, and they said a video of mine went viral on, I don't know if it was on TikTok or Instagram, but thousands of people have been using the video and nobody's crediting me, and a lot of other people that are selling something similar to me are using it to promote their products and services. So it comes with the territory, yes, in
Mhm.
terms of if you're putting your content on a platform that has the very function of it is to encourage other people to stitch it or, create add something to the video and
Right.
publish a part of your video, there isn't an implied consent and maybe even an express consent in the terms of use of that platform. So I believe on Instagram, you can turn off the feature for
Yes.
stitching. I would guess TikTok is as well. Are you on TikTok, Pat?
I mean, barely, but I think that function is there, but it's almost like, why wouldn't you use that function? That's the whole
Yeah,
purpose
yeah,
of doing this is to go viral.
exactly,
So it's kind of,
exactly.
it's kind of interesting.
Well, it was an interesting conversation in the thread. Some people were saying, it's spreading your message and helping further your mission. So I think it's a win. And other people are saying, yeah, it's very annoying when people don't credit or
Right.
when, there are some curated accounts where they don't add anything to the video at all. And they'll just republish the reel or republish the video, which I think we're talking about a different thing there.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's nothing being added to it. It's not a feature of the platform. So I think there's certainly something to discuss on that end. But yes, if you are on a platform that the terms of use of that platform and the platform itself encourages, reposting of other people's content, publishing somebody else's post on your story on Instagram, for example, or retweeting on Twitter or on X, I guess. And that I would not consider that. However, if you are promoting a commercial offer or something that you're wanting to if you're commercializing that post, I would steer clear from using anybody's content if there is a
Mhm.
commercial aspect to it. If I'm promoting a paid offer, I think you're getting into the gray area there.
Yeah.
When it comes to music on those platforms, that was a great point that you brought up too, Pat, is that, music on platforms, if you're using the music that is on, the different social media platforms, I I can't say for sure using them for commercial purposes is permissible, but they do allow access to the music for business accounts. So maybe the
Yeah.
answer is yes. Yeah, I would say it's likely the answer is yes. But if you're finding images on other platforms, like I said, Google, Pinterest, there are tons of stock photo websites that are, you pay to use their content. If you're using that without payment, that would be considered misuse of somebody else's content. Do your trademark clearance search before you launch anything, and always, always, always do business with a written contract. I know we didn't get into contracts today, which that is another large part of protecting yourself legally, and we'll talk more about that in the extended version of the webinar in SPI Pro. But anytime you are working with anybody to develop any part of your brand or any part of your content, make sure you have the terms of that in writing and make sure that they are transferring ownership of that content to you or to your business entity so that you maintain ownership and the rights over your IP. And yes, so I don't like to dwell on the negative. I'm definitely more of a focus on the positive kind of person, but there are very real consequences to IP infringement. So it's important you get familiar with that and like I said, take the steps to be proactive, legally protect yourself, make sure you have, different practices and mechanisms in place to make sure that you are consistently using the IP symbols, consistently executing contracts with different people that you are working with, whether it's a contractor or an employee or a client or a business partner, and only use content that you have the permission to use. And if you don't have permission, ask for permission. And if the answer is no, then don't use the content. And again, be proactive. Don't wait to be reactive. Be original or get permission. And again, always have a contract. So I think that about wraps it up for me, Pat.
Yeah.
I know I went a bit longer than I intended.
No, you're
but
good.
hopefully it was good. I know we got
You're
a little
good.
Q&A in there.
We'll have this up here for just a few seconds so people can know where to contact you. Coachesandcompany.com is the website we recommend you visit. And of course, SPI Pro is available, and this is where you'd want to go if you want to sign up for that. smartpassiveincome.com/day3 will speed read your application through there. And we're really excited because we have Yaz, we have Amy, we have Nasheen, and tomorrow we have Pam Slim, who's going to be joining us as well. Just incredible new members of our Experts in Residence program. And what's cool is in Pro, it's not just getting more information, because you also get access to the All Access Pass on all of our courses within one price, but you also get access to these amazing people who are here to support. So if, for example, there was something going on legally that you might need help with, Yaz might be able to help you out, or at least point you in the right direction from inside of SPI Pro. And that's why we're so grateful to have you here, because you have this expertise that a lot of us don't have. And so this is like the power of community, to be able to tap into each other's superpowers. And again, can't be more grateful for you. And thank you for that overview of IP. And it is an important topic, and I appreciate you breaking it down for us, making it very simple. The box analogy was a great one, and looking at clear examples, the understanding of how important it is to come up with a brand or a trademark that is not just a descriptive, generic thing, so that you can protect it over time. So Tina says, learn a lot. Thank you both, says Hannah. We do have a few questions that we can kind of burn through real quick here, if you don't mind, Yaz.
Sure. Yeah. Let's do it.
Saving.
Cool.
You had touched on this, but maybe just a quick 30-second answer. Is IP trademark global? I'm in the understanding that it is based in the country that you do it in. However, it sounds like you can get trademarked in other countries too.
Yes, you can register your trademark within the country that you're in or that you're doing business in. And then there is an international registrar called the Madrid Protocol. Not every single country is included in it, but many are. And so if that is, relevant to where you're doing business, it might make sense to pursue registration internationally as well.
Cool. Thank you. I'm going to try to see if I can understand this question from Greg here. He says, I have an LLC, so great. It's formed.
Nice.
And have multiple brands, domains, different products. I'm curious about ownership. Let me put that back up, as it relates to the LLC versus me or my wife as the individual creators of the IP. So I would assume that this question is, do I own these products and domains, or does the brand own the products or domains, the LLC? Can you speak to that perhaps a little bit, and how those things are kind of delineated, or the hierarchy of that?
Yeah, really good question. So the individual, the creator of the work, is who owns the IP by default. It only changes if in writing you transfer ownership of the IP asset. So if you and your wife created content or any form of IP as it relates to the business, but you individually created it, if you want for the entity to own it, there has to be a written agreement that transfers ownership from you, the individual, to the entity.
Great. And you don't need to do that every time, right? You can essentially create something that says, every piece of content that Greg Herod creates is under the ownership of Brand Name LLC, right? And just have that in place.
Yes.
Got it. Here's one that I'm very familiar with as well. Digital Photo Mentor says, we've had our online courses stolen, even though it's streaming only, and put up on sale on scammer sites. What is the best way to protect against that, or get those sites taken down? Oh man, I've had my experience with many of our online courses being sold for a fraction of the price on these scammer websites. I'll let you shoot first if there's something we can do, and then I'll kind of share my
Yeah.
experience.
I want to hear. I know. I want to hear how y'all navigated it. Would you mind sharing,
No, I
please?
don't.
Would love to hear.
So
Yeah.
we've been playing whack-a-mole for years,
Yeah.
and it's like, boom, you hit one down, we get our attorney involved, we do a cease and
Yeah.
desist. In most cases, they take them down because they've been, caught, if you will, and then another one pops up somewhere else. We smash that
Yeah.
one, another one pops up, another one pops up, and it's just like it was taking so much energy, money, and time that eventually we got to the point, or I got to the point where I was like, none of these people who would have bought these courses anyway would have been my customer anyway. I
Yeah.
don't like that it's happening. I frown upon it. We're going to still continue to send cease and desist as much as we can, but I'm not mentally going to worry about it as much as I was. It was crushing me. Like my stomach was hurting because of it. But then I go, this energy should be put to those who are my good customers, and I can focus more on them and use that energy and time on them and just kind of not be okay with it, but just I got more important things to do because unfortunately this game is just the game we're playing right now.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Man, I wish that nobody had to deal with that, but it is a very common occurrence.
Mhm.
It's another one of those things that kind of comes with the territory.
Right.
And the more your business and brand grows, and the more people learn about what it is that you have to offer, that surface area increases, right? Of how likely it is for something like that to happen. And so, um, depending on where it's taking place, if you find that somebody on any online platform is publishing your content or maybe it is a course, many websites have takedown forms and requests and infringement forms and requests that you can submit, whether it's, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Amazon, podcast players, like there is likely some mechanism where you can report the infringement if it's on a platform like that. If it's being sold on a website, you can contact the website host to
Mm.
have it
Mhm.
taken down. You can file a takedown notice, and those can be effective as well. YouTube, of course, is one of the primary places that we see a lot of content being published for public consumption without the permission of the original creator, and they're pretty quick about responsiveness, the YouTube administrators, I mean. So yeah, that's unfortunately kind of, the dark side of publishing online, if you will.
Yeah.
Kind of just comes with the territory. But I'm with you, Pat, in that it's not something to get tore up over. You can't stress over it. Don't, spend all your time. It really upsets me when I see people allowing themselves to be consumed by it
Right.
online, whether they're going on and on publicly about, people are stealing my content or people are copying my content or my brand. And also people who begin to pull back and not want to put their content out there for fear of somebody copying it or stealing it or, ripping it off. And I don't think that it's a good reason to hold yourself back for fear of being copied. And that's one of the most common things I hear from people that haven't started yet either, is they
Yep.
think, well, I have this really great idea and I have this awesome content I want to put out there, but I don't want anybody to copy me. I don't want anybody to steal it. I don't want anybody to, you know, try to do the same thing, but it's not a good reason.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. All right, a few more here real quick.
Yeah.
Dr. Joella says,
Yeah.
question, is it a best practice to trademark Dr. Joella, like a name, as it's my
Yeah.
brand?
That's a great name. Can I let you know? That's a really great name. I love it, Dr. Joella. So I think the broader question is, can names be trademarks?
Yeah.
Can you trademark your name, your personal brand, which a lot of people are building their business on their personal brand? And the answer is yes. If you are using it commercially as the brand name and you're selling something in connection with it, a product or a service, or even, I want to say this too. If you're not selling something necessarily, maybe you're just publishing content on a podcast or on a YouTube channel and there's no paid offering tied
Mhm.
to it yet, that is still considered providing of a service. You're providing educational services, you're providing entertainment services. And so that those can qualify for trademark registration as well. So yes, you can register your brand name if it is your personal name or something that you're using as a personal brand.
Amazing. Two more questions here. Some of the questions that were asked had already been answered, which is great. And of course, access to you in Pro and your workshop will have more opportunity. And make sure to subscribe to the podcast too, because we're going to get you on there tomorrow. So Nathan asks, if my business is, say, teaching people how to use a trademarked program like Asana, which is a software, then I can't call myself the Asana guru or Asana master or the Asana guy, Asana gal. I know some people who have built businesses kind of becoming an expert on a software. Can they brand themselves and trademark that name within their own brand?
I like the question. The answer is you could name yourself that, but you probably shouldn't. It's
Yep.
not a great business move, in my opinion, in terms of distinctiveness. You'll forever be tied to a brand that already exists. And also you won't be able to secure, and I think this is probably why the question was asked, is would I be able to even register that? And the answer is no, highly unlikely. That tool probably already owns the rights to it, to their name, and that is the primary focus of, the Asana guru, the Asana master, whatever it might be. So that is the most distinct portion. So it'd likely be rejected by the USPTO, and you'd probably be hearing from the platform, the tool itself, that, stop using our trademark as your trademark, so you would want to go in a different direction. That's a great
I
question,
agree
though,
with
and
that.
it's a common thing.
I agree with that for sure. And I think that, what if the company gets bought out? Then they change the rules. Like, even if they were okay with it, which some companies are, many companies support those, like the gurus who use the program and want to support them and will perhaps allow that. But all it takes is a board member change or a different vote to change everything. And then your business is screwed. So that's like primary reason not to do that.
For sure.
Secondly, to your point, like, try to see if you can get more creative with something that could adjust, or you can add other things in, or, if the company ends up tanking or something, then now your name's associated with, something bad that the CEO did, right? If something bad, like, you're giving up a lot of control doing that. So I wouldn't recommend that.
Exactly.
Last question here. This is from the Introvert's Guide to Content Creation. If someone is using a brand name and has abandoned it for years, do you stop the project? Where does that line exist for using sort of dead names, I guess?
Oh, that's a really good question. And there is a period of time, I can't remember off the top of my head how many years it is, but a quick Google search can help you find out how many years after a mark has been abandoned can somebody else. So maybe we'll talk about that in the extent. I'll have that
Cool.
number discovered in time for our webinar in SPI Pro. But yes, there is a period of time if the trademark was used prior and they stopped using it commercially, whether they were registered or not. If they stopped using it commercially, the clock begins to tick, because it's all your rights in a trademark is not based on, I really love this name, I'm just going to register it, I've never used it commercially, or I'm not using it right now. In order to have rights in a trademark, there has to be commercial use active and present. There are ways to, if I'm a trademark owner and for some reason I have to pause the business and I'm no longer using it commercially, there is a grace period, and there is a way for me to file certain filings with the USPTO to excuse my non-use. But non-use or abandonment of a trademark, there is a period of time where eventually other people can begin using it commercially and new trademark rights can be established in it.
Nice. Yes, this has been amazing. Your workshop inside of Pro is Tuesday, June 18th at 9:30 a.m. just for the person who asked. But anyway, thank you again so much for coming on today, everybody. Be sure to check out coachesandcompany.com. Also say hello to Yaz inside of SPI Pro if you're there. And we couldn't thank you enough for your time today and for giving us the basics on this stuff, which is so important, and making it understandable. We appreciate you, and just looking forward to connecting again soon.
Likewise. Thanks so much, Pat. And thanks, everyone. See y'all soon.
See y'all soon. Thank you, everybody. Cheers.